Although this week we will be talking about zombies, I did want to say something about Beowulf. Now, Beowulf is an early Anglo-Saxon or late Old Norse poem. Now, most people do not realize that we have one extant copy or manuscript of Beowulf. And if we did not have that manuscript, then we would not have that story. So it's special in a way. Now, it is a mythic tale in that it has to do with mythical creatures and fantastic circumstances. It's not a fairy tale, and it's not really a legend, even though it might have been based on an actual person, Beowulf. And I won't even go into the monstrosity of the movie with, what's her face, Angelina Jolie playing Grendel's mother, because that monster, as she is portrayed in the movie, and Grendel as well, are not representative of what that poem was about or is about. Now, Beowulf is, of course, a heroic epic, and the heroic epic comes from Sumeria and the Epic of Gilgamesh, but that's another class and another mythology. And in that poem, Beowulf is a Dane, a Viking, and he goes to help the king Hrothgar to rid his kingdom of this horrible monster, Grendel. Now, Grendel fits the aspect of a monster in a couple of ways. One, physically, he is very imposing. You know, he can rip men apart and rip their arms off. And there is some evidence that he is eating those body parts. But he also fits the definition of a monster from Campbell's point of view, in that he is the antithesis of everything that is good. Grendel has no morals. He has no ethics. And he would just as well tear somebody apart and eat him as to cook a chicken egg and eat it. So he is doubly a monster. Now, Grendel's mother is also doubly a monster. And she was in no way attractive. She was described very horrendously. And she had, of course, birthed Grendel, which made her a monster in that sense. And in the poem, she is even described as the wife of Satan. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that Beowulf was originally a pagan poem, composed by pagans and had pagan elements. It still has pagan elements. The concept of fate or the veer that's very strong in Scandinavian mythology, but it has been Christianized. And the Anglo-Saxons were Christianized, but at the same time, they also incorporated a lot of pagan elements into their Christianity. So you could read a prayer or a supplication for good crops, and it would appeal both to Jesus and to Odin. But we're really not concerned with that type of mythology. And yes, I know I tend to get off onto bunny trails because it's all interrelated. Again, I did want to mention Grendel in the Epic of Beowulf because he is the stereotypical and archetypal monster that not only repels us and scares us from a physical point of view, but also from a moral, ethical, and cultural point of view, and that we can't trust him. Hitler would be a monster from that point of view. Jeffrey Dahmer would be a monster from that point of view. They might not physically repel us or physically scare us, but in other senses, much, much scarier than a giant spider or even a brown recluse that is tiny. So I just, again, I'm being repetitive now. That's it for Grendel, and perhaps, someday I'll create another mythology class where we'll talk about even more monsters.